The report began, as all bureaucratic misjudgments do, with a footnote. 2 unregistered humans, it read. A pregnant female and a juvenile. Captured near the Azure Rift border during a Class 2 patrol. No resistance. No weapons. Presumed harmless. Temporary detainment pending identification. It was signed rather proudly by Subcommander Relvuk of the 3rd Imperial Warden Fleet, who, at that very moment, was leaning back in his gravity cradle, sipping fermented stardust wine and chuckling about the absurdity of human fragility. He wasn't alone in the sentiment. In the Imperial Galactic Codex, humans ranked somewhere between passably intelligent scavenger mammals and occasional evolutionary curiosity. Most senior tacticians regarded them with the same wary amusement one might reserve for poisonous insects, unpleasant in clusters, but hardly empire-threatening. So, when word reached the command deck that the human captives had not only refused to panic but requested tea, the reaction was predictable. Laughter. They brought china cups? Relvuk asked, smirking at his adjutant. Replica. Porcelain. They asked for boiling water. Said it calms the child. The child, Relvuk repeated, still amused. Is he weeping in fear? No, sir. He asked for coloring utensils. And, made this. The adjutant handed over a piece of flimsy parchment, oddly textured, drawn in messy but sharp lines. It showed a smiling sun, a house, and 3 stick figures. One bore a large belly. Another had ME written above it in bold crayon scrawl. The third was marked only by a red X over its head. Charming, Relvuk muttered. They think this is a negotiation tactic. She's not speaking much. Just asking questions. What kind? Logistics. Guard rotations. Supply drop schedules. Electrical architecture of the walls. Relvuk froze. He stared at the adjutant, blinking slowly. You're telling me a pregnant human civilian is casually gathering military intelligence while drinking tea? The adjutant hesitated. Yes, sir. Relvuk set down his wine. The cell was hardly a cell, more of a furnished observation suite, with translucent walls that dimmed on command, temperature controls, and a single surveillance orb tucked into the ceiling like an unimpressed god. The woman sat cross-legged on the cot, one hand resting gently on her stomach, the other holding the ornate cup they'd provided. Her skin was a sun-warmed gold, her eyes calm, too calm. Dressed plainly. No visible augmentations. No biometric irregularities. Just peace. Thank you for the accommodations, she said to the orb. I like the lavender scent. She sipped, smiled, then looked to her son, who was busy drawing a starship exploding in great, crayon-splattered violence. They do that sometimes, the boy said matter-of-fact. Explode, I mean. The orb beeped once, then clicked off. Relvuk watched from behind the security screen, one clawed finger drumming thoughtfully against the data console. She's unnerving, he muttered. She's pregnant, said the science officer beside him. She's calculating, Relvuk corrected. The science officer glanced at the drawing, where a dozen stick-figure aliens lay strewn in dramatic crayon death. The boy is imaginative. Relvuk's gaze lingered on the woman. She leaned in and whispered something to the child. The boy nodded, picked up a new color, and began sketching something that looked suspiciously like a perimeter breach schematic. Commander, the science officer said carefully. There is one other thing. A trace ping was picked up, faint, encoded, and matched to no known civilian band. From where? The science officer hesitated. His toy. Elsewhere in the galaxy, deep in what the Empire arrogantly called unclaimed sectors, a man stood alone on a command bridge. No insignia, no rank displayed, just a solid black uniform, pressed and silent, like morning steel. His hair was short, military cut, his face expressionless, and in his eyes was the kind of stillness that spoke of deserts, hot, ancient, and full of bones. Signal confirmed, said the voice behind him. Encrypted dead drop. Coordinates lead to Azure Rift detention grid. He didn't speak. Sir, the voice asked. The man finally blinked. I told her, he said quietly, to wait 1 week before activating the beacon. She waited 6 days. She's early, he said, voice unreadable. Then, slowly, like gravity tightening around a planet, his presence sharpened. Inform Phantom Wing. Phase 1 begins at sunrise. In the detention suite, the woman hummed a lullaby no Imperial officer could place. The child yawned, wiped crayon from his face, and curled beside her. "I don't like the guards," he murmured. "I know. They smell like fear." The woman smiled gently. "That's because they're learning." "Learning what?" "That humans are never what we seem." She brushed a hand over his hair. Her expression didn't change, but the air around her did, tightened, as if the gravity itself had leaned in to listen. The surveillance orb blinked red. "Who are you?" came a voice from it, strained and dry. She looked up. "Just a mother," she said softly, "and a very tired one. You entered Imperial space illegally. You refused to answer questions. You tampered with facility systems." "I didn't tamper. I asked questions." "You've triggered security protocols." The child snorted. "You trigger Dad." The voice wavered. "We have authorization to." "To what?" she asked, tilting her head slightly. "Detain a woman? Interrogate a child?" Her voice was still soft, but the quiet now had weight. "Do you know where you are?" The voice tried again. "Yes," she said. "And who you are with?" "Yes." The orb clicked. Silence. Then she smiled again. "You don't know who you've taken. But you're about to learn." Subcommander Relvik paced, claws clicking against the floor in arrhythmic panic. The science officer returned, pale scales glinting with sweat. "Commander, there's chatter on the outer nodes, encrypted movements. Fleets adjusting. No declaration. No transmission. Just movement. Human. No ships have declared themselves." "Of course they haven't." Relvik snapped. "They'll arrive in silence. They'll land before the alarms sound." This wasn't a mistake. It was intentional. He stopped mid-step. "What's her name?" he asked suddenly. The science officer blinked. "We haven't identified her." "Then do it. Run every registry, every military base, every covert file. I want every known human married to a general. If she's the wife of..." The screen in front of them lit up. Name found. Dr. Elira Maddox. Civilian ID. Disappeared 5 years ago. Presumed dead. Affiliation classified. Spouse General Cassian Maddox. Known titles: The Butcher of Barth Prime, The Quiet Storm, the Apex Strategist of Terra. Relvik's mandibles twitched. "No." She stood as the guards entered. 6 of them now, tense and armed. The lead one raised a stun rod. "Come with us." She looked at her son. He stretched, grinned, and drew a smiley face on the floor. "I'm pregnant," she said politely. "And I'm under diplomatic protection. There is no record." "There is now." She tapped the wall behind her. The lights flickered once. Just once. Outside the facility, deep in orbit, a single human satellite came online. It had no weapons. No visible engines. Just an old Earth flag carved into the hull, and a broadcast module shaped like a rose. It began transmitting. Only one word: checkmate. The guards hesitated. The woman took her son's hand, stepped forward, and smiled without mirth. "My husband once said war is chess played with blood. You should have asked yourselves who the queen was." She walked past them. The boy waved. No one moved. And somewhere far beyond the stars, ships shifted silently into kill position. The Empire didn't realize it yet, but the game had already ended. The Galactic Council convened with all the pomp and bluster of a royal funeral staged by fools unaware the corpse had been swapped. 42 species represented in chrome-plated decadence, a parliament of polished tusks, glistening antennae, and condescending smirks. Floating rings of translation drones circled the chamber, humming through an ocean of dialects, converting words into meanings, and meanings into misunderstandings. They met not for war. Not yet. This was a diplomatic review. A minor incident, purred Chancellor Vroth of the Ulari Combine, waving one silken tentacle dismissively. A pregnant human and her offspring. Captured. Contained. We are not savages. We have offered tea. Chuckles fluttered around the chamber, like smug butterflies. They always squeal when taken, sneered the Lechery delegate, a sinewy reptile adorned with ceremonial bone piercings. This one drinks calmly and sketches maps. Amusing. Pathetic, really. No sign of threat, agreed the council archivist. No weapons, no guards, no identification. Just two fragile specimens blundering past the Azure Rift border. Statistically irrelevant. Statistically inconvenient, corrected the Tharnak observer, eyes like molten brass narrowing. The last time we underestimated their species, we lost 3 moons. That was centuries ago, hissed the Lechery. The humans were unruly once, yes. But this? A pregnant female and a child? They are not the sharp edge of Earth's blade. No, came a voice, calm as a lake. They are the sheath. Silence folded over the room. Earth's ambassador had arrived. He did not announce himself. He never did. He simply walked in, smooth-soled boots on marble, a neutral-colored suit, glasses perched on the bridge of a sharp nose. He looked like a diplomat from a minor trading planet. Forgettable. Ordinary. But as he took his seat, the air around him changed. Denser. Colder. Like the vacuum of space had followed him in. Ambassador Thorn, muttered Vroth, folding his limbs with exaggerated civility. We did not expect your attendance today. Thorn smiled. It was soft and small, the smile of a man who always had more information than you. I wasn't planning to attend, he said gently, until I received word that your empire detained 2 Terran citizens. A technical border breach, Vroth replied smoothly. We've handled it delicately. Indeed, Thorn said, sipping from the coffee cup he had brought with him. Somehow still hot. He did that. You detained a civilian, pregnant, accompanied by a minor. No charges. No trial. No communication with Earth. She had no identification, Vroth pressed, and no formal diplomatic protection. She didn't need any, Thorn said. She was never sent. She was simply taken. The Lechery delegate clicked its fangs. Then, retriever. File a complaint. You've sent complaints before. Thorn set his cup down. I'm not here to file a complaint. The room paused. Then why are you here? Asked the Tharnak observer slowly. Thorn's gaze drifted upward, as if reading an invisible report in the air. To inform you that the individuals you are holding have been identified. He waited. No one moved. The woman's name is Elira Maddox, Thorn continued. Her son is named Cashin after his father. Something in the way he said father made several translators hiccup. And who, pray, is the father? Vroth asked with theatrical sarcasm. Thorn smiled wider. General Cashin Maddox. All humor in the chamber evaporated. Even the Lechery stopped breathing. The apex strategist? Vroth asked hoarsely. Formerly of the 3rd Earth Defense Command, Thorn said. Currently operating off-grid. His current title, however, is husband. There was a long pause. It wasn't silence. It was processing. Then, you lie, snarled the Lechery, standing suddenly. A trap. You fabricate names and bloodlines to intimidate. Classic human tactics. Thorn looked bored. He'll be flattered. Where is he now? The Tharnak observer asked, barely a whisper. Thorn's eyes were dark mirrors. Closer than you'd prefer. And quieter than you'll detect. A dozen delegates began murmuring at once, summoning aides, demanding access to restricted fleet data, real-time scans, hyperspace surveillance. You're bluffing, someone barked. Earth has signed the non-provocation treaty. You cannot mobilize military assets without council ratification. We haven't, Thorn said smoothly. We simply lost contact with a few private vessels. Unregistered. Unarmed. Astronomical accidents are so common these days. Sabotage, Vroth hissed. Coincidence, Thorn corrected. The Tharnak leaned forward, his 4 eyes focused. Why would General Maddox allow his wife to wander near the rift? That sounds unlike him. Thorn sipped again. She wasn't wandering. She was painting. You see, she likes to sketch star systems, especially border territories. And the child? Thorn smiled. He's learning topology. His father's son, after all. Vroth was trembling now, though he masked it with a dry cough. We had no way of knowing. Yet you acted, Thorn replied gently. You see, that's the problem. The Empire has always believed humans are simple, predictable, either meek or monstrous, depending on what suits the narrative. He stood slowly, adjusting his cuffs. But humans are neither. We are prepared, always, in ways you never see. Because while you polish your claws and shout in chambers, we study. We remember. And when needed. He tapped the table once, softly. A holoscreen blinked to life, displaying a map of council space. Dozens of markers began to flash. Unregistered ships. No comms. Silent. Near critical infrastructures. Docks. Fuel hubs. Relay nodes. None were Earth-flagged. All were Terran. This is aggression, shrieked a delegate. No, Thorn said softly. This is a lesson. And what are you teaching us? Vroth whispered. Thorn looked around the chamber, meeting every eye. That humans prefer peace, he said, but have never forgotten how to hunt. He stepped back. Return the woman and child. Immediately. Or the next time Maddox moves, you'll learn what a true extinction-level event looks like, without a single shot fired. He bowed, turned, and left. No one tried to stop him. Back in the chamber, chaos erupted in elegant tones. Delegates began drafting emergency signals. Some demanded immediate release. Others argued for evacuation. Some begged for the truth. Only the Tharnak observer remained still. He turned to Vroth. This was never about the woman. No, Vroth admitted hollowly. It was about what she meant. Then what do we do? Vrotha's voice was barely audible. We pray he comes for her gently. Aboard the prison facility, Alira Maddox exhaled slowly. The guards were shifting now. Command channels disrupted. Communications jammed. Her tea was still warm. Her son climbed into her lap, crayon-stained fingers wrapped around her wrist. Did he get the message? He asked. Yes, baby, she said. Did they believe him? They will. He leaned against her, yawning. Then why are they still here? She stroked his hair, gently. Because empires take longer to realize they've already lost. A red light blinked on the ceiling. The guards jolted, weapons raised, but there was no alarm. No breach. Only a soft pulse. Rhythmic. Like a heartbeat. Like someone was already inside. On the edge of council territory, deep within the murk of sensor-blind systems, a single human stealth cruiser powered down its cloaking matrix. Inside, General Cashin Maddox stood before a three-dimensional tactical sphere. His eyes scanned 100 data points in a glance. Status, he said. Council in panic, replied his aide. Detention, facility, still holding. Wife and child are unharmed. Ambassador Thorn has made contact. Response. Mixed. Mostly terror. Some denial. Maddox nodded. Good. He turned, slowly walking the length of the bridge. His movements were quiet, controlled. The kind of stillness predators use before the kill. She gave them every chance, he said. Yes, sir. He stopped before a terminal. One finger hovered above a glowing symbol. Do we move, sir? The aide asked. No, Maddox said. He tapped the icon. A signal flicked to Thorn's comm. The response was one word. Received. Maddox closed his eyes for a moment. Then, softly, let them blink first. And the lights dimmed. The council remained in session long after Thorn's departure. Heated debates devolved into panicked whispering. Every word was translated into a dozen languages, each adding another layer of dread. Some called for appeasement, others for retaliation. A few, wiser than most, said nothing. In the center of it all, Vroth sat slumped in his seat. The Ulari had known fear before, during the core purges, during the Great Collapse, but never like this. Never with tea and crayon drawings and smiles. Because this wasn't warfare. This was calculated mercy, and the promise that if it was not accepted, it would be the last one ever offered. The Empire had captured a woman and her child, but Earth had let them. And now the Council understood. Humans didn't send threats. They sent warnings with a smile. And if those warnings were ignored, they didn't shout. They vanished. Deep within the detention suite, Alira opened her eyes. A new message blinked on the wall. Stand by. Wolves inbound. She smiled faintly. Her son was asleep now. She sipped her tea again, closed her eyes, and waited. Everything was going exactly as planned. The night shift at the Azure Rift Detention Complex passed in the illusion of calm, sterile and humdrum as always. Lights pulsed gently across polished obsidian floors, casting their antiseptic glow on walls built to contain criminals, dissidents, spies. Not mothers and children. Yet there she was. Elira Maddox hadn't moved in hours. She sat perfectly still, breathing slowly, hand resting gently atop her stomach, as if meditating. Or listening. Her son lay curled beside her, thumb tucked into his palm, mouth half open in sleep. His little drawings, ships, explosions, enemy bunkers drawn in delightful neon crayon, were still scattered across the floor. The surveillance orb above her pulsed red every 10 seconds. Active. Watching. Recording. And missing everything that mattered. Lieutenant Derville, commander of the facility's 3rd Rotation Security Team, leaned over the monitoring console with a yawn. She hasn't blinked in 5 minutes. The technician, a bored-looking Rixari with a twitching eye, shrugged. Maybe humans enter a trance state before labor. Or maybe she's just crazy. She's not crazy, Derville muttered. She's waiting. For what? Derville didn't answer. He stood up and paced toward the reinforced viewport that overlooked the upper block. Guards stood at attention. Automated drones drifted in predictable paths. The entire grid was humming with quiet efficiency. Still, Derville couldn't shake the feeling he was being observed, not from the monitors or even the inmates, but from something outside, something that didn't blink or breathe, something patient. His instincts were never wrong, but they were late. Behind him, the monitors flickered. Just once. A blink. Then they resumed. The technician frowned. Did you see? Yeah, Derville muttered. Run diagnostics. But the screen was clean. No errors. No signs of tampering. No ghosts in the system. Because ghosts don't leave footprints. They leave voids. Within the cell, Elira opened her eyes. Her son was awake now too, though he hadn't moved. They're late, he whispered. No, she said softly, they're early. But they're waiting. Like your father taught them. He blinked slowly. Waiting for what? She looked at the wall. Past it. Through it. For the Empire to make a mistake big enough to justify the truth. The child nodded. It made sense in a way only children of soldiers understand. Will they be scared? He asked. They already are, she replied. And somewhere deep in the command network of the facility, a packet of data, coded in ancient Terran naval cryptography, activated. It had been dormant for days, sleeping like a virus in plain sight. The surveillance system adjusted its refresh rate by 0.0003%. That was enough. Suddenly, cameras began looping 3-minute segments. Not all of them, just enough. Guards continued their routes, unaware that they were being watched not by their systems, but by someone else entirely. On the edge of the outer defense grid, 5 maintenance drones deactivated simultaneously. Their internal logs were wiped. Their memory cores repurposed. At the same moment, a cargo manifest for structural reinforcement beams was auto-processed at Docking Bay 9. The delivery team? Unregistered. Silent. The guards scanned the manifest. It checked out. No alarms. The cargo moved through. Inside one of the containers, a human opened his eyes. His face bore no rank. No emotion. Just resolve. He tapped the side of his helmet once. The display flickered to life with 3 words. Standby. Hold position. Below it, a single phrase glowed in red. Family inside. Back in the council chambers, chaos continued its ballet of denial. Reports poured in from planetary governors. Sensor anomalies, silent ships, glitched orbitals. Counselors shouted. Some called it propaganda. Others called it war. Ambassador Thorne said nothing. He simply sipped his coffee, flipping lazily through pages of an old Earth book. Sun Tzu, translated into Tharnak glyphs. Vroth cornered him in a corridor between sessions. His tentacles trembled. You're not attacking. Not yet. So this is just leverage. Thorne closed the book. Oh no. Leverage implies we're asking for something. You must have a demand. I had one. You ignored it. We didn't know. You didn't ask, Thorne corrected gently. And now you're trying to figure out which of your secrets we've already copied, which of your defenses we've already compromised, and how deep our knives are buried. You wouldn't dare strike first. That's against your... You're forgetting, Thorne said, voice dropping to a near whisper. We didn't come here to start a war. We came to end one. He smiled, not cruelly, but with a weariness that struck Roth deeper than any threat. I warned you, Thorne said. Now we simply watch. Lieutenant Derval's instincts finally screamed loud enough to act. Full facility sweep, he ordered. Tactical override. Real-time feeds only. And someone go physically check the power relay room. His team responded instantly, well-trained, well-armed. But too late. By the time the guards reached the relay room, the door was already open. Inside, the systems were untouched. But all 3 technicians were unconscious. No wounds. No struggle. Just silence. And written on the wall, in a child's handwriting, checkmate. Derval stared at it, heart sinking. He slammed a red alert. Sirens blared. Lights flickered. The detention block locked down. But the cameras still looped. In her cell, Alira stood. Her son took her hand. Outside, boots thundered. Orders barked. Weapons activated. She turned to the surveillance orb and smiled. Tell Relvuk, she said gently, we accept his surrender. The orb cracked. Not exploded. Not shattered. Just cracked. As if the pressure of her words had broken it from the inside. Across the station, every screen lit up at once. A single face. Cassian Maddox. Not in uniform. Not armed. Just his eyes. They stared through the feed, like blades of ice. Let them go, he said. He didn't shout. He didn't threaten. He stated, let them go. 100 technicians tried to shut the feed down. They couldn't. One by one, terminals shorted. Lights dimmed. Weapons powered down. And the entire detention complex experienced a synchronized systems collapse that lasted 6.4 seconds. When the systems rebooted, Alira Maddox and her son were gone. So were 2 squads of guards. But not dead. Not harmed. Just sleeping. Their weapons had never fired. Lieutenant Derval found the message left behind. A cup of untouched tea. A red crayon drawing of the facility layout, complete with marked weak points and security flaws. And scrawled across the bottom, a note. You thought we were the bait. You never realized we were the trap. The extraction was so clean that by the time Council Security reviewed the breach, Earth had already released its official statement. Diplomatic retrieval of unlawfully detained civilians. No casualties. No shots fired. Only one file was appended to the statement. A file embedded with a subtle virus that disabled half the Empire's predictive threat analysis systems for the next 72 hours. The Council's analysts scrambled. Threat levels recalibrated. Every equation adjusted. And one name surged to the top of a threat matrix. Maddox. Back aboard the stealth cruiser, Cassian held his wife's hand. Their son sat nearby, doodling star maps with alarming precision. You gave them every chance, he said softly. Alira leaned her head against his shoulder. They never saw it coming. They never do. She smiled. You're getting soft, she teased. He smirked. Not soft. Just precise. Then he stood and looked out at the stars, calm, quiet, unbothered by the chaos in their wake. They'll retaliate, Alira said. They'll think they have to. Yes, Maddox replied. And that's when we finish it. She nodded, and the stars outside began to move. Human ships, previously dormant, powered to life. Not just one fleet. Dozens. They had been waiting, hidden in blind spots, masked by orbital anomalies, cloaked beneath the signatures of merchant ships and diplomatic envoys. Now they aligned. Not for war. For conclusion. The Council received one final message that night. It came encrypted through their most secure channel. It bypassed 8 firewalls and left behind no trace. Just one message. From Earth. We asked nicely. You answered with arrogance. Now we speak in silence. And silence, across the galaxy, had never sounded more like war. The command deck of the Galactic Council's primary seat, Helion Prime, had never known true silence, until now. Not the kind found in contemplative moments or sleep, but the thick, breathless pause between realization and consequence. It was the silence of prey that has just recognized it was never the hunter. Chancellor Vroth stood stiffly at the central dais, pupils dilated, his pulse flickering visibly in the translucent arteries beneath his ceremonial skin sash. All around him, council aides, security analysts, military delegates, and envoys from 42 star systems whispered panicked fragments of disbelief. The screens flared red. Not with fire. Not with invasion. With presence. Earth's fleet had revealed itself. Not around border territories or at trade routes. No. That would be expected. They had appeared around council-controlled planets. 3 of them. Simultaneously. At orbital distances so exact that analysts were still calculating how long they must have been in place. Not a single alarm had sounded when they arrived. Because they had always been there. One Lekari envoy, sweating cold brine, hissed, "How did they move so fast?" "They didn't," muttered the Tharnak observer. "They were never far. Earth said they sent only diplomats." "They did." Thorn's voice echoed into the room. He stood in the center of it now, unannounced, flanked by no guards, his hands empty except for the same chipped, ceramic mug he always carried. Steam curled from the dark liquid inside, a scent no one could name, but all remembered after smelling it once. "Diplomats," Thorn said quietly, "who happened to be married to ghosts, who came with empty hands and sharpened teeth." "You've deployed military assets in council territory," spat Vroth, forcing his voice back to command levels. "That is an act of—" "Read the treaty," Thorn interrupted softly. Vrotha's words caught in his throat. "It states no member may launch a military attack," Thorn continued. "We haven't. We've simply arrived. Surrounding sovereign planets with stealth fleets is aggression," barked the Lekari delegate. "It's coercion." Thorn took another sip, savoring it. "Is it coercion," he said thoughtfully, "to bring a weapon to a negotiation if you never unsheath it? You're threatening us with war." "No," Thorn said gently. "I'm offering you the opportunity to avoid it." The chamber rippled with disquiet. He hadn't raised his voice, yet every delegate leaned in, drawn forward like prey into a snare. The Tharnak observer rose slowly from his seat, speaking with deliberate weight. "Your General Maddox. Will he stand down?" Thorn tilted his head, eyes gleaming behind those deceptively plain glasses. "He's already standing down. You're still breathing." A collective breath shivered through the delegates. "He could have shattered your communications, wiped your satellites, unleashed antimatter into your water systems. He could have sent your moons falling into your oceans." He stepped closer. "But he didn't." The Tharnak's voice was an ear growl. "Why?" "Because his wife asked him not to." That simple sentence broke whatever illusion of superiority the council had left. Thorn turned, walking slowly as he spoke, voice calm as ever. "You held a mother and her child. You interrogated her. You ignored our diplomatic queries. You tampered with evidence. And you mocked us. We didn't know." "You never asked," Thorn repeated, quieter this time. He stopped at the central table and placed his cup down gently. "Your mistake wasn't capturing Elira Maddox. Your mistake was assuming she was weak because she smiled, because she wore no uniform, because she offered you tea." He looked around the room. "But humans don't wear their power openly. That's not how we survive." He raised a finger and pointed, slowly, deliberately, to the Lekari. "You," he said, "value size. You boast about fangs and venom. But we survived predation not by being large, not by being deadly, but by being clever." He turned to the gelatinous ambassador from Draction. "4. You're telepaths, empaths. You sense emotion, pain, truth. But we learned to lie with our smiles, with our breath. We became unreadable." He faced Vroth last. "And you," he said softly, "built an empire on arrogance. You thought you understood us because we traded politely, Because we followed your rules. Thorn stepped back. But while you measured our weapons, we mastered yours. While you postured, we listened. While you laughed, we learned. He snapped his fingers once. Every console in the chamber blinked. And, on every screen, footage of the Azure Rift detention complex. Internal schematics. Guard logs. The full plan. Every weakness. Already mapped. Your facility, Thorn said, was breached, infiltrated, and vacated. Without injury. Without notice. With absolute precision. The boy was inside the entire time, someone whispered. Drawing it, Thorn confirmed. Alira guided the infiltration from within. She studied you. Let you observe her. She knew you'd underestimate her. She volunteered. Vroth choked. Thorn shrugged. She insisted. Vroth collapsed back into his seat, his mind running futile calculations. What had looked like a hostage crisis was a masterclass in psychological warfare. They had studied the enemy from the inside, and now held every card. This isn't war, Thorn said, voice turning razor-thin. Because if it were, you wouldn't be here to discuss it. Then what is it? The Tharnak observer asked. It's a warning, Thorn said. He reached into his jacket and pulled out a thin, silver envelope. No markings. No seal. He slid it onto the table. What is it? Asked the Lekari, eyes narrowed. Thorn smiled. A list. The envelope opened itself, projected across the chamber. Names. Dozens. All council officials. Commanders. Operatives. Agents embedded in Earth territories, thought undetected. Gasps erupted. These, Thorn said, are the people we allowed to live, as a sign of goodwill. The Tharnak delegate whispered, You knew about them all? Of course, Thorn replied. We knew from the beginning. Why didn't you act? We were waiting, he said, to see who would blink first. Vroth stood slowly, breath trembling. And now, Thorn said, gathering his cup, we leave you with a choice. He turned toward the exit. You can expel the Maddox family's record from your systems. Acknowledge the violation. Offer restitution. Publicly. Or, he paused. We stop being polite. You'd risk galactic war over 2 humans. Thorn looked over his shoulder. 2 humans, he asked, genuinely surprised. You still think this is about numbers? He walked away. The moment you touched Maddox's wife, he said, you touched Earthsoul. He left them with that. Back aboard the Earth Fleet's lead vessel, Alira sat beside her son on the viewing deck. Cash and Maddox stood behind them, arms folded behind his back, staring at the darkness. The boy pointed at a distant star. Is that one of the council planets? Yes, Alira said. They're going to behave now. Why? She smiled. Because your father said so. Cashin said nothing. He didn't need to. He turned and walked toward the bridge. His second-in-command stepped into place beside him. Orders, sir. Hold position. For how long? Cashin's eyes narrowed slightly. Not with malice. With calculation. As long as it takes for them to remember, he said, that humans ask for peace. And if they forget, Maddox tapped the interface. On every council-registered starship's comms, a message played. You're not being surrounded. You're being spared. Back on Helion Prime, Thorn's coffee had gone cold, but his words hadn't. The council met again that night. Not to fight, not to argue, to sign. The Maddox Accord. Clause 1. No human civilian shall be detained without review. Clause 2. Any threat to human family units will be considered an act of war. Clause 3. Earth's fleets will return to stealth only when the Council has proven its memory is intact. In the days that followed, across the stars, other species asked how Earth had done it, how they'd outmaneuvered the Empire, breached the rift, infiltrated a fortress, and walked out without a casualty. The answer came in whispers. They never planned a rescue, some said. They planned a lesson. And others added. They sent wolves in suits. But only humans knew the truth. This wasn't humanity at its most dangerous. This was humanity at its most patient. Because when you take what a human loves, they don't rage. They don't scream. They just smile and start hunting.